Hizmet's charity activities, I think, are a critical ingredient to its success and its identity as a Muslim movement, a movement rooted in its faith. Charity is essential, I think, within the Islamic tradition of its faith. An understanding that's focused on a spiritual unique contributions in dialogue and education. My name is Aaron Tyler. I'm a professor at St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas. I teach international relations and I chair the graduate program in international relations at the university. I have a strong and positive opinion about the Hizmet movement's contribution in interfaith dialogue. I've participated as an academic and also as an ordained minister in interfaith dialogue initiatives initiated by the Hizmet movement, and those activities have occurred in places like Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Istanbul, Kyrgyzstan, Bosnia. In each of those places, I've had an opportunity to participate in interfaith dialogue initiated by the Hizmet movement. So I have a strong and positive perspective on its role in that area. I have visited a number of Hizmet schools, including Hizmet schools in conflict or post-conflict regions of the world. And these schools, again, have focused on education as a means of empowering young people and empowering communities for contributing to the common good. I think the Hizmet movement sees education as a critical ingredient to coexistence, as a critical ingredient to bettering our communities in terms of well-being, whether it be in the area of healthcare, whether it be in the area of politics, whether it be in the area of jobs. That education really is a root requirement. Quality education is a root requirement for empowering and bettering a community. And so the Hizmet movement, I think, has made it a priority to develop schools around the world, and especially in conflict zones. And I witnessed that in Sarajevo and throughout Bosnia, schools that have been developed there that have focused on integrated education with an integrated classroom where all are welcome, whether they are Muslim, Catholic, or Orthodox. And I think that this has been instrumental in the overall peace-building agenda within that region of the world. And I think you can see this example in many places around our globe in terms of the Hizmet movement and education. Hizmet's charity activities, I think, are a critical ingredient to its success and its identity as a Muslim movement, a movement rooted in its faith. Charity is essential, I think, within the Islamic tradition, and essential for its adherents to participate through zakat, etc., different opportunities to give back to those in need, to help those who are suffering and in desperate situations. And so I think it has been very important for the Hizmet movement to have a robust and comprehensive approach to charity, to supporting those who are suffering. And I think that really provides it a comprehensive framework as a movement, because really quality education in conflict zones, for instance, cannot occur if the community's hungry, if the community's starving, if the community does not have adequate shelter. So I think helping in these areas of basic survival, of shelter and food and health care, are critical and have to accompany quality education. That you can have wonderful schools and wonderful education in these schools, but if these areas of society are not addressed, then the efficiency and effectiveness of these schools will be severely limited. So these two things go together. To be successful in education means to be successful in charity and supporting society and its needs. To be supportive here in the long term in terms of society and its needs means to also be involved in education, empowering that society to care for itself, not only in the short term but in the long term as well. So I think its commitment to charity is critical to its success as a movement. And you know, I think a lot of the influence for the Hizmet movement comes from this idea that God loves God's creation. And to love God is to love what God created, right? And so I think that inspires many within the Hizmet movement to reach out and help those who are hurting, regardless if they are Muslim or Christian or Jewish or Hindu or are of no faith. But simply because God loves them as part of His creation mandates that they do the best they can to meet these individuals' basic needs for survival and flourishing. We know the Hizmet movement, its genesis is in Turkey. In Islam as a faith tradition, but geographically from Turkey. And the appropriate relationship between secularism, democracy, and religion has been contested in Turkey for many years. Right, over the last 8, 9 decades, we've seen this country really wrestle with what it means to be Turkish, what it means to be men and women of faith, what it means to embrace democracy, to what it means for religion to have a role in the public square. All of these things, I think, have been contested quite intensely within Turkish history over the last 80, 90 years. And there have been those in the media and I think in political leadership who have questioned the underlying intentions of movements like Hizmet. And this idea of being too good to be true in terms of its commitment to education and philanthropy and charity and dialogue. And there must be something else behind this. And I think that is also a product of years of mistrust and conspiracy theories, etc., that are somewhat rooted in the Turkish tradition over the last 7, 8 decades, 9 decades as it's wrestled with its identity. Religious and political controversies are easily stirred, I think, in Turkey, and the Hizmet movement is not immune to this reality and to these kinds of accusations. And I think one of the best things that the Hizmet movement can do, that its volunteers can do when challenged with these accusations of underlying alternatives or some other political initiative, I think the best thing that it can do is continue to be transparent. Continue to communicate what it's doing and why it's doing it, to not be afraid to engage those accusations with honest conversation about why its volunteers are doing what it's doing. And I think by doing that, it maintains a credibility in the public square, and it works to reinforce public trust within the communities of Turkey and around the world. But that is an enduring challenge. And then when you have volunteers who are teachers and intellectuals and politicians and policemen and women and students, they're going to be rooted in their societies throughout Turkey. They're going to be involved in their communities politically, etc. And so that's always something that the Hizmet movement will need to be aware of, I think, and balance as its members are involved in society, but also apolitical, in terms of the motivations of why it does what it does. In terms of improvement for the Hizmet movement, I really speak as an outsider looking in. I say that, but in many ways I feel like part of the family in terms of dialogue and in terms of welcoming environment and the hospitality. But I also speak as a Christian, a non-Muslim who's also committed to dialogue. I believe that the volunteers within the Hizmet movement from their faith-based tradition really see God's love of humanity as a primary motivation for their work. To love God is to love what God loves. And that's very similar to the Christian idea of really the Shema, this notion of loving God with all of our heart, soul, and mind, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. We share that same likeness, that same commitment, that because we love God and what God loves, we are committing to loving others, right? And so I think that, to me, is what's rooted in the Hizmet Movement's work and the work of its volunteers. In terms of improving the Hizmet Movement, I don't know that it's my place to say where that improvement should take place, but as an academic, as a scholar who looks at faith-based civil organizations, I think one of the biggest challenges for the Hizmet Movement is to continue to be persistent in remaining apolitical, outside of the political controversies. So I think being very tuned to the political climate where they are and making an effort to stay outside of those political controversies, those political climates, so that people can look at them and say, you know what, these people, you know, if I'm Croat or if I'm Orthodox, if I am a Croat Catholic or an Orthodox Serb or a Bosniak, Muslim, I'm not looking at this school and this Hizmet movement saying this is a Muslim Turkish movement trying to insert itself in my community. I'm looking at it instead saying these are human beings who, from a position of faith, want to help our community. They're not here for political reasons. They're here for human reasons. And so I think it's going to be very important for this movement locally in the places where it inserts itself and globally to focus on being apolitical, to being non-political, and focus 100% on its faith-based initiatives in empowering communities through education, encouraging dialogue across faith traditions, and reaching out through charity and philanthropy to meet the needs of those less fortunate and those who are suffering. I think that as it does those things and stays away and outside of the political fray, it will continue to grow in credibility and have a tremendous impact in our world. So on a variety of fronts and in a variety of ways, I think Fethullah Gulen and the Hizmet movement have offered a profound positive contribution to our understanding of faith and community.
The Hizmet movement is serving humanity without asking for their religions or their racial identity or whatever else. They are serving people because service to God's creation is a path to serving God.